Welcome to the Mexpreneurs Podcast, the podcast about the stories of Mexican tech startup founders who are building world-class, fast-growing companies and having a positive impact at a large scale. My name is Sergio Chavez. I'm a Mexican based in Germany, a tech startup founder, executive, and mentor, and your host. Today we have Gabriel Garza with us. Gabriel is co-founder and managing director of DocTour, a telemedicine startup based in Cancun, Mexico. DocTour started with a mission to address the healthcare needs of international tourists visiting Mexico by offering affordable telemedicine consultations. The platform has since expanded to offer comprehensive corporate health services, white label solutions for insurance companies, and a new focus on managing chronic diseases. DocTour is also working on a new social impact project that will provide free telemedicine consultations for children and families in rural areas of Mexico, bringing much-needed healthcare to underserved communities. Gabriel is originally from Monterrey, Mexico, and is based in Porto Alegre, Brazil. With a background in international commerce and economics, he worked at global companies like Cemex and managed large-scale projects across multiple countries before transitioning to entrepreneurship. Gabriel also spent time in France, where he completed 2 master's degrees and developed a passion for sustainable development and social impact. He later moved to Brazil for family reasons and has lived there for more than 8 years. His passion for leveraging technology to make healthcare more accessible, combined with a strong belief in social responsibility, drives the innovative solutions he continues to develop at DocTour. I hope you enjoy. Support for this episode comes from Skyflare, a cybersecurity company with a mission to make e-commerce safe for online shops and which currently protects dozens of Shopify-based businesses through its 360 degrees holistic protection. As an online shop owner, you know that every cent you spend in online advertisement counts, especially in Google AdWords. Therefore, keeping a tight control of your budget and the ROI are essential. Nevertheless, there are bad actors out there who can make those costs explode. Skyflare's click fraud protection solution helps you prevent and resolve those threats. At Mexpreneurs, we had the privilege to have Skyflare's founders in the podcast, including Juan Ocampo, a Mexican tech startup founder, and Skyflare's chief operations officer. Visit skyflare.com/Mexpreneurs to learn more and also to get a 10% discount during your first 3 months of your annual subscription. Skyflare is at the moment available in Europe, Mexico, and Canada through the Shopify App Store. Hello, Gabriel. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sergio. I'm very excited to be here.
And it's a pleasure to have you, Gabriel. So please, Gabriel, tell us, who is Gabriel Garza?
I am from Monterrey, Mexico. I was born there, but I was never always there. So from my early age, I started traveling a lot with my family at the beginning and then with work-related trips. And I even lived abroad and studied abroad. So I was very lucky in that sense. I currently live in Brazil, at the south of Brazil, near Porto Alegre, very, very at the south, where we are around 1 hour away from Uruguay. So it's not the Brazil everyone knows, like always sunny and going to the beach and everything. It's more like they call it Pampa. So it's a lot of humidity, a lot of heat in the summer, a lot of cold in the winter. And it's an adventure to be here. I studied international commerce at the Tecnológico de Monterrey with a specialty in international negotiations. And I did a 2 master's degree in France in economics and economics of territorial development. And I am currently an entrepreneur.
Those are already many different interesting things to talk about. But probably just to drive that connection. So you mentioned that you studied international commerce in Monterrey, and then you moved to France to study your 2 master's degree. How exactly did that transition happen? Or even before that, you also mentioned that you traveled before that. So probably let's start with the travel part and then we can dive into the studies part, because I think those are 2 very fascinating facets that you have.
Yes, of course. I've been going to Monterrey like back and forth a lot of times. So like Monterrey is my base where my family is and everything. But when I was 3 years old, my family went to France for 5 years because my parents were studying abroad. a master's degree and a PhD. So I lived there from 3 years old till 8 years old. So my basic education was in French. It was almost my first language. And then we went back to Mexico. But in Mexico, we traveled a little bit because of my father's work. So we lived in Mexico City, we lived in Saltillo, we lived in Monterrey, in different places. And I was always adapting to new schools, new houses, new cities, new everything. So I started liking a lot the continuous change, continuous challenges that we're posing every day. That is why I went to France the first time. Then, when I was 14, I did an exchange to the United States, and I stayed there for 1 year to learn English. And afterwards, I studied my career in Mexico, in Saltillo, in the Tecnológico de Monterrey. And when I finished my career, I applied for a job at Cemex. And at the time, Cemex was buying another company called RMC, that was a European company, the same size. And they were looking to build an international team to go there and implement the new model. Well, to study the other model, to create a new model, and then to go and implement it in the three main countries that were most representative of their business in Europe. That was France, UK, and Germany. So we started there, and from there we went to other countries. We went to Spain, we went to Ireland, we went to different countries, everything that. So that is why I went the second time to France. Then I came back, and we concentrated in Mexico after the project. And I had other jobs and other challenges. I became a business consultant, and we did some projects in Haiti. We did some projects in Spain. I was always traveling around. So that was my career. And then 2012, 2013, I decided to do the master's degree. And I applied for a scholarship to France. And I got the scholarship, and I went to study in Toulouse for 2 years.
You've been on the move since early age. And to France, you mentioned you went first because of family reasons, then because of work reasons. And you also mentioned before that you actually did two master's degrees, if I'm not mistaken, in France. What was the rationale behind that?
I already spoke French. I had some good acquaintances and friends and family friends that already lived around. So I always kept a very good relationship with them and with friends. I was very young when I went there, and I really liked it, and I had a great experience. It was one of my first choices. I was also tempted to go to the United States because of the language, but I found that what I wanted to study was located there in Toulouse.
What exactly were those two master's degrees and how did you ended up selecting them? Were they connected to international commerce or were there separate domains?
The first one in economy and society. So it was studying from a not an economics point of view, like econometrics and a lot of math involved, but from a society point of view, the economics of how they are interconnected in our society and how they work and how we can develop different models from what society can tell us, can hint to us from behaviors, from social media, from different patterns that can erupt. So that was the first part. And I was very motivated to help in Mexico, the rural area. I always kind of focused on studying the rural development. And the second master's degree is on economics of territorial development. And I focused it right on the Mexican rural areas. The idea was to contribute to the country. So I finished my master's degree. At that point, I had a couple. She was from Brazil. And when I finished, I said, okay, I have the opportunity. I have no job for anything that would hold me in France or in Mexico. And I came here to Brazil, and we got married and started a new adventure here. That's when I started my first little business that was a translation business. And then I started DocTour. So that is a little bit how I got here. And with DocTour, we have a project, we could talk about it later, in Mexico with rural areas. We bring telemedicine consultations to rural areas to help families and kids from the state of Nuevo León.
And you mentioned also before, Gabriel, about the different jobs that you had. So you mentioned you worked for Cemex, you also worked as a consultant. And before actually going into entrepreneurship, what was actually that path before that? So you were at Cemex doing part of these mergers and acquisitions team, later evolved into consultant. Can you walk us briefly into how that development was?
I was 1 month a translator, and then we were hired as a consultant in development for the project. So then we went to France 3 months to study the company. We came back. It was a big team. It was like almost 1,000 people in three different countries, analyzing the whole business from back office, front office, commercial, quality, procurement, every aspect of the business. And the task was we need to merge the two models together and use a single system and use the same KPIs and the same metrics all around because Cemex was in what they called the Cemex way, was trying to standardize all around the world, all around the countries, the same processes and the same business metrics and everything in order to better manage it. So we were part of that. And then when we came back to Mexico with specialists, and I wasn't a specialist at that point, I was just learning. And I learned a lot about how to plan, how to manage and execute a big project, how to manage teams, how to put everyone together because every department in a company that big, it's a lot of people, it's a lot of processes, a lot of information, a lot of everything. So everything has to work in sync. I learned about how it was structured because we were part of the structuring the management team, the upper part, not the implementation teams, not the. So we were in charge of going to the country and training everyone at all levels, from corporate to the concrete plant. So I went there also and we implemented the model. And then I was trained to be a business process expert. So I was for the operations and with all the business of concrete and the quarries and everything. It was all engineers. I was the only one that wasn't an engineer, but I was successful at it and we managed it. And I went to the concrete plants and implemented systems and everything. So it was a great experience. It was 3 years to implement whole France. It was almost 300 concrete plants and 200 quarries. So a lot plants. And we implemented a global system of like a call center for help, multi-language that was going to be based in Hungary. And we trained the people. And afterwards, we all went to Mexico and new projects started. SAP implementations, new business processes. And I was training business mapping process, business process design. We mapped the whole business of Cemex. It was the same. It was a team of 500 people, each one mapping different processes and different stages and putting it all together in a gigantic process map. Yeah, it took us like a year and a half to do that. And I was trained on that. And afterwards, I was trained on project management and I became a PMO, project management officer. And I oversaw and helped manage some projects of the SAP implementation in Spain and in other countries. And then the project stopped and there was a big cut of people. And I was part of that batch. I was upgraded to customer. I took afterwards, it had been almost 10 years. I took 1 year to think about it and then decided to go with the business consulting. I was a business consultant for another company for a while. And then I was a project manager for Siemens at Monterrey in the low voltage industry for the R&D department. So it was also a big challenge. And there I managed all the KPIs and the key processes of the department. And I was also with the intellectual property because it was the R&D. So a lot of the work they did had to be patented and they had to check it internationally. So it was interesting too. And then I had some personal issues that could not let me go and finish that job. And I took another pause to reflect on my professional life. And that is when I decided to go for the master's on 2014. And 2016, I arrived in Brazil, and then the rest is history.
And you mentioned, if I understood correctly, when you arrived to Brazil together with your partner. That's when you started your entrepreneurial journey with your first business. What exactly was that first business? You mentioned something about translation or language.
As a translator. So I was in Brazil. I had nothing to do. I did not speak Portuguese. What can I do? Where should I work? And I started online business translations for certified translators, either review documents or did the translations to French, to Spanish, and to English, those three languages. And it was going fine. We had some foreign translators that had some big clients, and I was going great. And then 2017, it was when DocTour, the opportunity came up, and we started that business, and it started going well. And then I stopped doing the translations to focus on DocTour.
We will be right back for a conversation with our guest. Support for this episode comes from Partnership Leaders, the leading community of partnership professionals and executives in SaaS and tech with over 1,500 members globally. We're living in the decade of the ecosystem, and every CEO needs to become a partnership leader. Just take a look at the top companies in the world today like Microsoft, Google, and Apple. They have all become platform companies, and partnership executives in IT have been the ones leading these transformations. Partnership Leaders brings these executives together and is building a playbook to enable CEOs and business leaders across industries to transform their organizations into platform companies. If you're a tech startup founder, Partnership Leaders is the place for you to learn how to leverage partnerships to take your business to the next level. I'm a member of PL and co-host of the Germany chapter and have seen firsthand the richness and value of this incredible community. Visit partnershipleaders.com to learn more and to apply to become a member. Make sure to mention in your application that Mexpreneurs referred you so you can receive a special price if your application is accepted. And in regards to DocTour, of course, we're going to dive deeper into DocTour in the next episode. But just for our listeners to understand, look, how exactly did that opportunity about DocTour came into place? What was that trigger that led you into finding that business opportunity? Because also based on what you mentioned, it seems that DocTour is a little bit different from what you did in the past in Mexico and all of these big major implementations. So how exactly did that happen?
I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I knew I wanted to have a business. And I was always thinking about it, and I was starting the translations. But when I was studying my master's degree in France, my business partner, that is Dr. Guillermo Loyo, was living in Cancun, and he was working as a doctor for hotels, resorts. He was taking care of patients. And one day he called me and he said, listen, I have a French guy. He doesn't speak English. He doesn't speak Spanish. I don't understand what he's saying. Can you please help me? And I did the translations and he did the consultation. It went well. And a couple of times the same thing happened. By the time I was in Brazil, it was like the fourth or fifth time. And I was like, oh, okay, so maybe there's a business opportunity here. Let's see, what can we do? And we started analyzing and, okay, what can we do? What type of model can we create? And we started in the telemedicine. We chose the telemedicine model. So it was linked to technology, to IT and everything development. And I was already familiarized with that. And I got to apply all my knowledge to this project. So we created an MVP, we tested it, it worked, and then we decided to launch.
And for those that are not familiar with how doctors work at resorts, can you briefly explain, like, all of these resorts do have a doctor? Is it mandatory? How exactly did your friend ended up working there?
I think that for big resorts over like, I don't know, it's 500 tourists, I think it's based on the occupation. They are required to have a doctor, not a clinic or little consultation room, but a doctor, at least on call. He was at a resort where they had a little office and he was there and he was treating the tourists from the resort. But not every hotel has a doctor or has a consultation room. And also, not every tourist travels around with extra money for health issues. That was kind of the combination because those type of services at the resort are very expensive, very, very expensive. And they also carry with the experience some kind of, we call it vices that we wanted to solve because with the tourist, everyone wants to get a commission. or wants to get something. There are some vices along the road, even in the medical path for the tourist that becomes a patient. And at the end, they end up paying way more than they should for something that sometimes they don't even have or something, because everyone is like a snowball. Okay, I will send you to there to make an exam and he gets a commission, and the exam will send you to, and everyone wants their cut, and they pass you through the whole system and you don't even need to. That is one of the vices that we wanted to end and to make it affordable. And with telemedicine, we could solve 80% of the tourist problem without him even leaving his room. We manage the privacy situation where you do not need to go and everyone has to see you that you're ill in the hotel. From your room, you can get the consultations. And we created a model with, okay, don't move. We'll send you medication, we'll send you a nurse. And we started creating. Then we moved to the business part, to the corporate health and wellness as another branch of the business. But we started for tourists, and we are still with the tourists. The name DocTour is the doctor for tourists. It also means doctor in a lot of languages. We said, okay, how someone that is not from Mexico, how is going to search? And we managed to came up with that name.
That's a fascinating story, but especially like how you spotted this opportunity together with your business partner in terms of the opportunity that was there. And yeah, I think a lot of our listeners can also relate when they've been tourists, especially in the country with a foreign language. You just don't know. You just go along and whatever they tell you, it's what you do. And you have absolutely no idea what's needed, what's not needed, and all those things.
Even if you know the language. One time I was sick in Spain, in Barcelona, and I was all alone. I was working, and it was a horrible experience. You don't know where to go, and you don't know how the system works, because every health system is different in every country. Even if the language might be a barrier that we help to overcome, but sometimes even in your own language, just being in another country, it could be a nightmare.
It's indeed not only exclusively the challenge with the language, but it's also the fact, as you mentioned, that every health system in every country works in a different way. And as a tourist, you're just not prepared for all of those different scenarios.
We got to know that only less than 10% travel with travel insurance. Anything that happens to you during a trip will be very expensive. And what happens when they go to a resort or their vacation? They have the money for their accommodation, some leisure that they can do, and some trips that they can take. But they do not have like $6,000 for medical bills. That is part of what we can say, okay, we can help you through this system, even though it can be expensive. And we started working more on prevention, and we developed a health plan that is for travelers during their travel. And we started baking some new formulas to attend to the travelers' need.
I'm really looking forward to our next conversation where we'll dive deeper into all of these. Gabriel, just being conscious of time, something that you also mentioned is about your connection to Mexico. You've been living already in multiple countries. You've been living already in Brazil for multiple years as well. But what is that connection that you have with Mexico today?
Family is always the first connection. I'm from there. Monterrey is the land where I was born, and I grew up at different stages of my life. But I also, well, have my business, and we have a project, a social impact project, that is to bring health services, primary health services, to poor families in the rural areas of Mexico. And we started this project with an association that had a project involving technology and education. And we started bringing, the project is Tablet Aprendo. It's from Fondo Educativo Anacleto, Guerrero Guajardo. In Mexico, the rural areas, the education is multi-grade. So one teacher for all the grades, and all the grades in the same classroom at the same time. It was a challenge, and they developed a system where they have using the tablets and technology and information, bring some more information so they can do exercises and learn while the teacher is doing another task with the others. And we came with the information in health. So good health habits. Yes, hygiene and health habits, and a nutrition program with food they have around, because some areas are semi-desertic. It's not like they can cultivate everything. So we took into account that. And from that, we started to build a health point where our doctors will give teleconsultations for free for the families, and they can improve their health also. We managed to get some help from the government of Nuevo León and the foundation, and we are about to implement the first point in a couple of months. We are going to attend 180 children that are in need, and the goal is to expand it also.
That's super interesting that you're combining business also with social responsibility, family, a lot of multiple touch points that you still keep with Mexico.
And what I studied, territorial development, it's part of that. It all matches perfectly.
It's all coming together. Gabriel, just to wrap up this first conversation, what I would love to learn is about your best advice for other aspiring founders out there who are listening to you, others that would like to follow a similar path in terms of building their own startup. What would be your best advice to them?
I will always say you need to write it down. Write it down, have a good business plan, review that business plan every 6 months, every year to see if you are still on the path, if you need to adjust, if you need to do anything to that. But that helps you to put your goals straight, to put your mind where you want. Because if you do not put it in paper or something physical, as a blackboard or something, the brain won't materialize it and you will be so focused as if you do that. So that is one thing. Put your goals, put your everything you need and follow up and go behind it. A good business plan. That is one. Two, bootstrap. We do not have any capital round seed or anything. It was bootstrapping. And if it's a business, it will grow. So find the business and make it grow, sales. And number three, never underestimate sales. You need to sell. So you need to find good team. You need to find new strategies. You need to be very creative and you need to sell. If they do that, the business is going to grow. No need for external capital.
Especially nowadays, when you see the way that startups are being built more and more into basically bootstrapping, going back to the basics in terms of building profitable business, just growth at all expenses, but actually building sustainable, profitable businesses that could basically, from the very beginning, start becoming self-sustainable.
And when you start on the venture capital line, it takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of pitching, and the business, where's the business? Who is managing the business? So if you are the one who is taking care of your business and managing it, and you start going in that direction, you are at risk that the business will lose profitability. And a lot of times, growth is not only capital, because normally the capital, the first rounds and everything is just money to burn, to establish yourself in the market, but it's going to end. And a reality is that from maybe 1,000 startups that a venture capital invest, one is going to be the one that is going to pay off the rest. The rest is not going to survive the whole process. That is one of the main questions. If you want to become an entrepreneur, you need to decide what kind of entrepreneur you want to be. You want to be in the, okay, I want to pitch a startup, a great idea, make it grow in venture capitals, and then have my exit, and that's it. Or you want to have a business and your business and grow your business and maybe retire from your business. Those are two different paths, and they should be considered with great importance.
Those are incredible golden nuggets, Gabriel. Well, thank you very much for these first conversations. I think there were a lot of fascinating aspects that we learned today, and I'm really looking forward to our next conversation.
Thank you very much for your time, for your space, and I hope to bring some more to the table on the next interview.
Looking forward to that. Thank you very much, Gabriel.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. And thanks to you for joining us today. Please remember to subscribe via your favorite podcast app to be notified about new episodes and share with us your feedback. We would love to hear from you. Thank you also to the Maxpreneurs team, Valeria Morel, Hector Barragan from Hyper Voltage, Francisco Jaimes, Pamela Elizalde, Katia Cruz, Rocío Marroquín. I am Sergio Chavez. See you next time.